This is Bill Cassidy, Senior Editor at the Journal of Commerce. I'm here at the JOC Inland Distribution Conference in Oak Brook, Illinois, and I'm talking with Andy Lynch, who is president of Zipline Logistics out of Columbus, Ohio, I believe?
That's right.
That's right. Andy, we were on a panel together today about trucking in the ELD era. Yeah. And I wanted to talk specifically about some research Zipline's done on the ELD and its impact on shipping. Specifically, back in February, I believe, about 2 months after the ELD mandate took effect, you released a survey of some data about the impact on transit times. Yeah. Could you talk a bit about what you found at that time? This was a time when people were seeing a lot of disruption, but no one really had been able to measure it until that point.
Sure. Yeah. We took a sample of about 6,000, 7,000 shipments across a smattering of companies that we knew didn't experience huge seasonality, so we sort of selected them based on volume and a lack of seasonality. And then we just, ran through our proprietary analytics platform to start to figure out, based on essentially from the day that the ELD mandate went live through present day, looking backwards a year and a half and measuring, the transit times on average for the data post-ELD versus the transit times against. And we found that, across the board, no matter the mileage, that the average had gone up about 16%, which came out to about 4 hours of driver transit time, which is hugely impactful when you consider, just all of the aspects of getting a load from A to B on time that can get in the way. 4 hours being taken out of that.
Yeah, 4 hours doesn't sound like a lot of time in the overall scheme of things, but when you look at a driver's day, they can only drive for 11 hours a day. They have 14 hours to work in. They have to take breaks, I believe, after the 7th hour of driving. Yep. A half-hour break's mandatory. So when you add 4 hours onto that, what does that do if you have like a 7-hour trip?
Yeah, I mean, the net effect, we used to look at a shipment that was 500 miles or 550 miles even as an overnight shipment, no problem. I mean, you could take that to the bank all the time. And immediately, the minute ELDs went live, that changed. And suddenly, the shipment that might pick up today at 3 o'clock and deliver tomorrow morning 500 miles away at 8 a.m. now isn't delivering until noon. And now when that driver arrives at noon, he's got to wait 2 hours to unload. And now he's not empty until 2 o'clock, and he has to try to go get someplace to get loaded in the same day. So it really had a huge ripple effect across the efficient operations of transportation companies.
So what does that tell us about how things were written before the ELD mandate?
Yeah, it's not good.
Someone had mentioned magic, some magic that was working, but we know that wasn't magic.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about the little fudges that people were making, it's not like they were really egregious. It's not like people were staying up for days and driving through the night, right? It was really that those little things of the driver goes to his truck, hops in his truck and drives over to a shipper, and that might take 45 minutes or an hour of on-duty time, even if it's only 5 or 10 miles, and they weren't counting that time, right? Or they arrive at a shipper at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it takes a couple of hours to load them up. They may not count those 2 hours of sitting there first thing in the morning. Again, I don't think that drivers were consciously, playing games with safety. I think they were just trying to use common sense with the way that they managed their time, for the sake of all of our safety, probably for the better, we took that away from them.
Right, and so now you had trips that had been overnight becoming 2-day trips.
Yeah,
you had same-day trips becoming next-day trips.
Yeah,
how have shippers adjusted to this? From the shippers you're dealing with, who are mainly consumer packaged goods shippers, I believe.
Yeah, everybody. So, 95% of what we deliver ends up in someone's hand. So really that means that 95% of what we deliver is going to Walmart or Kroger or Costco, right? These really, really, really strict, stringent retailers who are under tons of pressure from Amazon.
And who are charging shippers for missed deliveries, whether early or late, in many cases now. Yeah,
huge across the board. I mean, almost everybody. I have a hard time coming up with a grocery retail receiver that isn't charging some level of penalty for either missed deliveries or missing due dates. They're pretty punitive about that.
Yeah. So have shippers reworked their networks in order to adjust to this new reality? Are we still working on that?
I think the shippers that have the data are. So, a big part of what certainly we try to do, and I think most people in our shoes are trying to do, is really show shippers, these are the real financial repercussions of being slow to load, or of, that customer of yours that only takes trucks between 8 p.m. and 3 a.m. There's a real cost to that, and you should start building that into your pricing structure. And, I think that it's super impactful when a shipper can sit down and really get an understanding, not just, try to jump from provider to provider in order to try to save a penny, but really understand what are the fundamentals that are driving my costs, and try to, if you can't shape them, then at least build them into, your internal economics so that your price can be reflective of what it is that you're actually doing.
And until you can get that data, and such as the data that you've provided through this survey, there's really no way for a shipper to do that, is there?
No, not really. I mean, even pretty robust ERP systems aren't necessarily calling that very transportation specific, almost wonky kind of data.
Now, you touched on a couple of things that shippers can do to help alleviate the pain in a way, and in many cases, these are ways of adding time back into the supply chain. We've taken time out of the driver's day. We've taken time out of the delivery cycle because we have just-in-time delivery. How do we find ways to put time back into the supply chain and keep the driver whole?
Sure. For us, it's about optimizing your schedule with a driver utilization in mind. And we try to message our customers often that the most impactful thing you can do is facilitate efficient operations out of your carriers, and that makes your freight more sellable. It makes it more attractive to a broader group of carriers, and at the end of the day, it allows whoever your 3PL provider is to set expectations in a reasonable manner and make sure that the driver understands the same thing that the guy on the shipping dock understands. So that cuts down on conflict, it speeds things up, and it kind of greases the wheels.
We've had talk today about the cycle as well, and how this business moves in cycles. We have sellers markets, as we have now, and then we have buyers markets, such as we had in 2016 for many shippers. Does the change brought about by the ELD mandate, you can't eliminate, I would think, the cycle, but does it smooth things out in a way that mean you don't see the wild swings back and forth, and maybe we keep some of the gains in efficiency that we've gained in this cycle rather than giving them away in the next?
I sure hope so. From my perspective, all of the data that carriers are gathering from their ELDs and all of the data that they've really had to start aggregating in order to survive in the challenging markets we've put them in. Hopefully that, combined with the lessons that we've all learned, I think, as a shipping community about what it takes to run a carrier, and what it is to recruit a truck driver, and what a challenging lifestyle that is, and what those folks mean to our economy. I sure hope that we can take all of these lessons and apply them to a smoother road ahead, where we all understand that we corrected this driver shortage by raising driver pay by 20+%. That money isn't going away, because if it does, that community is going to shrink again, right? So hopefully we're taking the lessons we've gained by these massive swings and applying them in future markets, and hopefully not seeing a vengeful buying market in the next couple of years.
Right. And Andrew, you've just released or about to release another survey related to ELDs. Can you tell us a bit about that before we go?
Yeah, so we tried to rerun essentially the same environment that we ran the first time. We asked a few hundred carriers. We ended up getting complete enough responses from about 150 carriers, mostly between 6 trucks and 100 trucks, so a pretty good-sized fleet. That's actually, above 6 trucks is actually not a small trucking company. And what we found were that, as far as the safety efficacy of the ELD mandate, it's still kind of down the middle. This time we came through with about a 60-40 split, where 60% of companies felt safety had improved, drivers were operating in a more responsible way, they were getting more rest. 40% still said, hey, we're rushing to beat the clock, we're speeding down the highway to try to find parking. So still pretty split there. Some really interesting things that came out that were different were that this time around, 80% of our carrier respondents said that there are now shippers and receivers that they absolutely will not pick up or deliver to no matter what. So there's not a rate, there's not an incentive that you can offer them to get them to pick up or deliver from some of these folks due to how much time it takes. And actually this round, certain carriers called out shippers by name. I mean, it was,
wow.
You know, so-and-so is terrible, and, you know, if I show up 30 minutes late, they hold me for 7 hours. And, you know, quite honestly, in 2016, that was par for the course, right? If you showed up 30 minutes late or 40 minutes late, you were at that shipper's mercy. I think that those days are largely gone as well. Yeah. We really have to start working together to build some flexibility in for these guys.
Andrew, it's been great having you here. Thank you very much for joining us this year. We hope to see you again at the JOC Inland Conference in 2019.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.